There's a new monster in town, Mary Kish.
It's scary.
It's the Wraith. Look at this nasty thing.
She's a beast. She kind of look like a xenomorph in Kerrigan. If you look at the other monsters, think about it like D&D. Goliath, he's the fighter type. Kraken, that's the mage. And Wraith is the rogue. So it's all about getting in, good initiation, and then kind of slyly getting away. Fast damage and out.
Yeah, high DPS, but then you're also very squishy. You
That's right.
don't have a lot of health. You have very low shields, even when you've replenished them. The thing with Wraith is she's got these evasion abilities. The first one we'll talk about is sort of the most straightforward, Warp Blast. Basically, you just zoom into a point, you warp in there, and then boom, you do this area of effect explosion. So it's super good for initiating.
And it's actually a little hard to do. I've noticed most of her skills that we'll get into in a little bit are difficult to pull off.
Learning to skill shot those things to clear your line of sight so you land where you want to is a skill you develop when playing Wraith, but that warp in and blow up is not just a great initiator, it's also good for hunting, because you can catch up with some critters and blow them up real easily. It's also good for denying a revive, because you know, like, you've gotten away, and they're, like, running into revive, the hunters, and you're like, no, I don't think so. The next ability, kind of in the same warping vein, is Abduction.
You actually get these weird cone vision to pick the person, zoom in, grab the person in your gross tentacles, and zoom out. You don't get too many yards on it, but it's enough where you get a good 5 to 10 seconds alone with whoever you've abducted to do some serious damage alone.
Yeah, and you warp right back to where you started from, so positioning is key here, maintaining an open sight line, and as you level it up, you actually do increase the range pretty significantly. It is so satisfying when you just zoom in and yoink somebody, and then you cruise back and you know it's gonna be a little while. I was playing as Wraith, I grabbed you, you were the assault, I had you all alone.
I popped my shield.
Pop your shield! Oh, and I was just like, dang it, this was for nothing.
You picked the wrong one, because as soon as I popped my shield, there's really nothing for you to do. You actually left me. But, to your credit, though, when you're taking people away, you're doing huge damage because as a team, that's the whole point, is to do damage as a unit all together. When you're picking someone off, dropping them off in the middle of, nowheresville, and then going after the team, they've just lost their major damage dealer. So even if you kind of pick up the wrong guy, it's a huge problem.
Every monster has a unique movement ability, and the Wraith's is Warp. And it's basically just a dash, but you can do it in any direction. You can do it up into the sky, onto a platform. You can do it like laterally along the ground.
One of the ones that absolutely destroys our team, I've been calling the Murder Dome.
Murder Dome? Yep, Super Saiyan Sphere was my alliterative take, but it's called Supernova, and basically what it does is creates a little mini dome. Now, it's not like the mobile arena, which controls access in or out. You can go in and out of it, hunters can go in or out of it. It's just an area effect. You attack much quicker, and you do more damage, and you just turn into this, like, crazy food processor of death. The final ability is Decoy.
Now, the Decoy, this is so important, does damage. So you can essentially pop your Decoy and then just sleuth away. You become invisible when you pop your Decoy. So as your Decoy's doing damage, everyone's going to assume that that's you, and you just kind of sneak out of there.
And even if they know that you've popped your Decoy, the Decoy is still attacking them and doing damage, so they have to pay attention to it. They have to account for it. Otherwise, they could get in-capped, they could lose serious health, and then that positions you to stealthily sneak up on them and land the killing blow.
Something important to understand about the Decoy is that if you do any kind of physical move, if you try to do another move, it will erase your Decoy. So the point of the Decoy is to move into a better position or to get out. It's not to have double damage. You can't have you and your Decoy doing damage at the same time.
Yeah, and you can't be popping other abilities, but you can eat.
That the best way to avoid damage is to use your skills in tandem. There are very particular tactics that I found out very quickly that made me it just felt like I couldn't lose using these tactics. Flash in and you explode, that's your initiator. You pop your dome. You do a little bit of damage in your dome.
Start chopping people up.
That's right, as fast as you can. And then when you got like 5 seconds left, you pop your clone. Because what happens is if you pop your dome first, your clone gets the benefits of your dome, which means your clone is dealing significant damage.
So with these tactics, what's the counter, right? This became our real big question because you and I played a bunch of matches on the same Hunter team, and we got shredded by a Wraith 4 games in a row. Then I played as a Wraith and played against you and some other folks, and like 3 out of 4, it was deadly Wraith times. And I think one of the big things is the Wraith's evasion game is so strong. How do you pin down the Wraith? The Hunters are all about getting the monster in that dome, getting some traps down, getting some harpoons into them and slowing them down. But with the Wraith Decoy, with the Abduction, being able to like warp around, there's so many things in the Wraith's favor for getting it away from the Hunters, for letting the Wraith control the engagement, that it kind of seemed overpowered.
Yeah, she is completely different than all the other monsters. They all have their different skills, but when it comes to Wraith, it is so hard to do damage. Because once the Wraith feels like they're in trouble, they just pop the clone and leave.
One of the things to keep in mind, though, Mary, is when we first played Goliath, when we first played Kraken, it did kind of feel like the new monster was overpowered. And so I think counter-programming to the Wraith's abilities is even more essential. You know, it seems like very specific things. You want some harpoons out there, because holding the Wraith, keeping it in place is super important. One of the new Hunters, I believe Cabot, has stasis grenades, which they blow up in an area, and then the monster will get slowed, and we'll get these kind of like little balls of light circling it to indicate.
But there's no denying, in my opinion, that Wraith is going to be the one for the experienced players, and they are interested in that more difficult challenge of a monster, because with that challenge, I think, comes the most damage of any monster.
Might be a close contender for my favorite monster thus far.